Hey, welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff. You are here Saturday morning, and we are going to really dig into it. The one theme of today, the Ripple test, the Howey test. Does it get replaced when it is in reference to the cryptocurrency digital asset space? Is there an appetite right now to replace the old outdated Howey test from 1946 and come up with something much more, let's say, modern, let's say, up to date, let's say, with the times of today? We're going to talk about that. I want to get into a little bit of what Congressman Tom Emmer is talking about, what Jim Cramer is talking about when it reference in reference to Bitcoin. What kind of asset does the Reddit founder hold? There's so much stuff going on right now when we see institutional adoption, institutional investment is getting ready to hit all-time highs, and we've seen massive amounts of money coming in from the big institutions, while at the same time, we look at all of this. Big media FUD is probably at its height. Big media FUD and big media FOMO, always an issue. But big media FUD right now reaching all-time highs in reference to digital asset, in reference to Bitcoin. And we've talked about it on the live streams over the past week. But we've seen a lot of it in reference to the Colonial Pipeline hack, how the hackers were paid, and how fast the powers that be were able to not only track down the Bitcoin address where the money was being moved to, but supposedly they also got the keys to the Bitcoin that the hackers had in possession. So something's up with that. We're going to get into that and a lot more. Let's get ready to kick this thing off. I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's hit it.
Welcome to On the Chain.
All right, I realized what the problem was. That glass is full. Coffee's hot. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go out and get your favorite espresso. Don't leave the house now. Bring it mobile. Try to avoid the Starbucks espresso. Way too bitter, way too acidic. But there's some amazing espressos out there. Our favorite over here is Segafredo, and you got to get the right one. Get the red bag. If you're overseas and you can go in and get the commercial version in the black bag, even better, even better. That's how we got to get started here. We got to kick this thing off the right way. Let's dive right into this idea of a Ripple test. How exciting is that? Now, the one thing that we've seen over the past, I don't know how long, let's call it months, we saw a lawsuit filed by the SEC versus Ripple. Now, regardless of where you stand and you watch some of the leadership within Ripple, maybe, voicing their political opinions, maybe a little bit too loudly for a financial company, one that is still in development and trying to recruit banks all over the world. But forget about that. What's important here is that you have the SEC targeting one of the leaders, one of the primary leaders in the cryptocurrency revolution. We see this movement of the change of finance on a global scale. And we have people here on the chain that come in and, from all over the world. So we talk a lot about what's happening here in the US, and the US historically, when it comes to technology, has always been a primary leader in the development of tech, the primary leader in the development of automotive, the primary leader in the development of so much that goes into everything that's going around us on a daily basis. The interfaces, your computers, your software, your websites, the web in general, the speeding up of the web through a company called Akamai a number of years ago. I mean, there's so much that goes on, and that has been almost like the epicenter of the world from a financial perspective because of all this new tech. So that's where everyone always focuses. And then they look at the US from a high tech perspective, and it all is minimized in just one area in Silicon Valley in Northern California, and that's it. And so if you're looking at this tech revolution from a web perspective, then the majority of it was all condensed in one little tiny space. And if you weren't in that one little tiny space, then you weren't anybody. And we've seen that same thing, with the development of Microsoft and Apple, and so many more, Amazon, Google. So it's all condensed in one area, on the West Coast. But the world is so vast. There's brilliant people all over the world. And now, for the first time ever that I've seen, and you can go back and look at it historically, but for the first time ever, there's a method, there's a way that people can enrich themselves no matter where they are in the world in this new tech development. And it's so amazing. So blockchain and the digital assets and cryptocurrency, we've seen people invest for the very first time, maybe never even invested in stock, maybe never even talked about or looked at, let's say the Wall Street Journal, maybe never even looked at Yahoo Finance, didn't even know how you buy a stock, didn't understand the fundamentals of buying a stock, didn't understand how you even get your money onto an exchange to buy stock. And you have these people that got into the digital asset investment space. It's so uplifting. I can't tell you guys how amazing it is. Every day I look at this and I see people that are investing, whether young, middle age, old, whatever, that are learning how to invest in themselves, invest in their future, how to save, how to leverage their money by putting it into a vehicle that is going to grow exponentially over the years. There's some early adopters. Like anything else, there are early adopters, and many in this space are early adopters. And some of those early adopters are now, millionaires or billionaires because they bought into this space way early. And then there's people that got in a number of years ago, still early. People that are getting in today, still early. We're seeing the liftoff phase, the financial institutions getting ready and starting to put money in it. The attention and the recognition is here. And on a global scale, we're seeing countries like El Salvador. They get it. They understand the direction that the world is moving in. They also understand that they have an opportunity right now to invest in something that will not only better their citizens, but will better the positioning of their country economically on a global scale. By passing Bitcoin as legal tender, El Salvador has already put themselves ahead of pretty much every other country, including the United States. Now, what's interesting about that is that you're always going to get pushback. There's always going to be pushback, right? You're going to have pushback from the IMF. Why are they pushing back? So the IMF came out and said about El Salvador, this is dangerous. They shouldn't do that. Maybe it's not even legal for El Salvador to do that. But the IMF is thinking about it from a perspective of handout, of subservient, a country being subservient to them, of control. So the IMF structured in such a way that their motivation has always been to assist a country in need, to assist impoverished nations whose balance sheet is upside down, and they extend loans to them, or they extend money to them to assist, to get them over the edge. So the IMF comes out. Why did the IMF come out against El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as legitimate currency? Mainly because it potentially impacts the money borrowed or the money loaned from the IMF to El Salvador, but that's it. They want to keep them poor. They want to keep them reliant on those handouts. Think about it from a micro economic perspective. If we come to the U.S. and you think about some of the inner cities within the U.S., and you think about it from a political perspective, is there political motivation to help people in these inner cities or in the poor communities? Are they there facilitating education? Are they teaching them how to invest in themselves? Are they teaching them how to, are they teaching them economics? Are they teaching them ways to take money and leverage their money? No. What they do is give handouts for generation after generation, because they know if you give, then there's a high probability that people in those areas won't try to excel at anything. And this is exactly, whether it's from a local level with individuals, or you go to a country level, the IMF is using the exact same strategy and thought process as they attempt to control the direction of El Salvador. El Salvador is a sovereign nation. El Salvador can do whatever they want to do to an extent, right? We don't want El Salvador launching missiles to their neighbor. Can't do that. People don't like that too much. El Salvador also shouldn't support, gangs, or El Salvador should take a more direct approach to violence. Now, there's some statistics out there that have said that Chicago is now more dangerous than the streets of El Salvador, that El Salvador has done an amazing job at cleaning up violence on their own streets. But where is it that the IMF has this leverage to try to make a dictate as to what the sovereign government of El Salvador can or cannot do? It's amazing, right? And it's the exact same thought process, like I said, of what goes on in some of the inner cities in the US as the politicians leverage these individuals, their lives, they leverage it for power. They leverage it to keep them poor, keep them uneducated, keep it dangerous, instead of trying to change things. And we see it, and we're beginning to see that magnified exponentially right now. All you have to do is go to YouTube, and you'll see people rising up against school boards all over the United States, because they realize that the school boards also do not have a single care in the world as to the education or the standard or level of education in any community. It doesn't matter where. We're starting to see the problem. And so you can see it on a small scale, and we're seeing it on a large scale. It's amazing to me when you see this on a large scale like this with the IMF against El Salvador. It's amazing, because you can say and you can believe that, hey, here's what you have on this micro scale, within a community. And you can see the local government on how they're manipulating the people. And what's amazing is that they're manipulating the people by giving them little bits of handout. And so these people that get these little bits of handout become reliant and become subservient to those that are supposed to represent them, instead, of those they elect being responsible to answer to those that they represent. It's everything is upside down and lopsided. It's amazing to me. So for the first time ever in history, people, whether you're wealthy, whether you're middle class, whether you're poor, you have an opportunity to invest in yourself within this crypto space. It's amazing. Doesn't matter if you put $1 away, doesn't matter if you put $100 or 1,000, you're investing in yourself. You're learning a new skill. So whether you're putting $1 away today because that's all you can afford, but now you've learned a skill on how to invest. You've learned the skill of finance. You've learned how to trade, whether it's a digital asset or a stock. So most have always avoided the stock market because you look at the stock market, it's a little daunting. You're not educated in it. You don't know how to figure all of these variables out. And you can't buy fractional shares of a stock typically. So if you go to E-Trade or Fidelity or one of the many others, typically you can't buy fractional shares. And that's problematic, right? But now the excitement of all of this is that we have people on the chain from Africa, Nigeria, and other parts of Africa. We have people in Latin America. We have people in Asia. We have people in Europe. We have people in the US. We have people in Canada, Australia, all over the world that have also seen what the cryptocurrency space can do for them now and in the future. So whether you're have made $1 million on crypto because you're early, or you're learning it now and you're in Caribbean as well, Kenan, yes. Whether you're in it now and you're starting to develop and you're motivated. So that to me is the most important part, is learning the new skill set, right? So we have people from all over the world that are now talking about the SEC. How many people that are involved in crypto, before involvement in crypto, would have been talking about the SEC or the CFTC or FinCEN or the IMF? I can tell you just from my own experience, and I travel a lot, I know a lot of people all over the world. I can tell you from my own circle of influence that the majority of the people that I run into don't understand the SEC. They couldn't tell you who's the chair of the SEC. They don't know anything about the CFTC. They don't know anything about FinCEN. They don't know anything about economics. They don't know anything about trading. They definitely don't know anything about cryptocurrency. They don't know what blockchain is. Many of them are even afraid of trading stock. So even people that are wealthier typically have somebody else invest and trade stock for them. So they're not doing their own research. It's amazing, right? It's amazing to me. So for the first time ever, people all over the world have this opportunity. Simon from Uganda. See, we got people from Africa. Africa is amazing to me because Africa's got the resources, right? There's resources in the ground. Many of the resources are untapped. Why? Because the leadership of those countries has been corrupted for many, many years. And you can go back in history and look at the colonialization of Africa as a root cause of many of the issues. But we're talking about hundreds of years ago. In some cases, not hundreds of years ago. But due to those facts, some of the borders in Africa were carved up through tribal territory. So you now have multiple tribes that were typically in conflict with one another, residing within the country borders of now what is termed one country. And so now there's tension within those countries. Do you think that that was accidental, or do you think that that was done on purpose? Obviously, if there's resources in the ground and you have another power on the outside that wants to come in and manipulate how they can take advantage of those resources, then of course they want to make sure there's as much tension and conflict as possible. So you have all these artificial borders that were drawn throughout Africa, which caused a lot of issues. The Middle East is another good example of borders that have been carved up, much due to the influence of some of the nations of that time, France, England, Germany, as they divvied up the different nations and they tried to control and kind of develop in the way they saw it. Now, you fast forward, you can't continuously blame others for your current existence, for your current state. Why? Because people have a responsibility to take care of themselves at this point in time. Because if we want to look back and place blame historically, you can't stop at 100 years. You can't stop at 200 years. You can't stop at 1,000 years. If you want to place blame historically, you have to keep going back in time. because there's always going to be a cause and effect. And so it's that cause and effect that is changing things, right? So right now, the root cause is people that are in economic hardship, or the root cause is that people want to take responsibility of themselves. So now when we look around the world and you look, and you can focus in on Africa because it is a developing environment. You have developing economies. You can look at Latin America and you have developing economies in Latin America. And it's amazing because these developing economies are now taking responsibility. You can't continuously place blame on others, because as we move forward in the future, there's going to be additional conflict and tension. Nobody knows how that's going to unfold. There's always going to be conflict and tension in the world. It's been that way historically, and it's going to be that way for a long time. You can go, if you want to look at England and Scotland and the conflict and tension between in that region, or England and Ireland, or you want to look at the Roman Empire and the Greek civilization, and you can keep talking about this forever. At some point you have to say we're stopping the blame game and we're taking responsibility for our present and our future. And part of that, taking advantage of your present and future, is being able to have the vehicle to get you there. So El Salvador understands this vehicle through Bitcoin, through blockchain, through digital asset. They understand to maintain and guarantee their sovereignty for now and in the future, the digital asset space is the way to do it. They can cut the reliance on the IMF. Hence, the IMF is fighting back. Hence, the IMF is pushing a false narrative as it pertains to El Salvador. The exact same argument, which is how we start, which is this ripple test. So why the ripple test? Why are we in the United States reliant on an SEC that is continuously pushing a narrative that we have to test all companies, all investment, based on a theory that was as a result of a court case from 1946. 1946. Now, it breaks it down into the very basic components because it's over an orange grove. So how much simpler, how much more basic can you get? It's a guy that divvied up his orange grove and sold off his orange grove and told people that, don't worry, I'll till the land for you and I'll sell your oranges and you'll just make money from it. And so they said that he was selling an unregistered security back in 1946. So now, as we fast forward, they continue to use this Howey test from 1946 about oranges. Be better if they used lemon trees, but it was oranges. So it's orange groves. Hey, that's awesome. So think about it from that perspective, and think now, as we see the SEC going after Ripple. Why? Why are they targeting Ripple? Why is the SEC so unprepared for what's happening? Why is the SEC, fighting this case and seemingly dropping the ball at every turn? Mainly because they are unprepared. They're unprepared because they don't truly appreciate this space. They don't truly appreciate what's happening right now in the cryptocurrency digital asset space. I say they don't appreciate it, but they're not prepared to take it on. So what's up, Jay from India? Good to see you. So there's so much stuff that's going on. It's really amazing, right? And so you start looking at how this is unfolding, and now it doesn't all happen in some isolation. Everything is impactful. Everything is representative of the environment, right? Of current environment. So that's why we look at the SEC. What have they been doing? There's multiple articles that have come out on this. And now this finance feds, these guys, have been writing, some decent articles and keeping up to date on some of the stuff. And I like going through, some of the commentary here. Let me pull it up. Let me give everybody a shout out here. Who's joined us today? Let's see. There's lots of great conversations going on in here. Tony Moore said, Jeff, a lot of the stuff you're saying, most Americans don't have a clue how the world works from an international perspective. Hats off to you for having the courage to spill out the truth. Thank you. I appreciate you, Tony. I really do. It's amazing. It amazes me. I mean, it's and this isn't something new, but I'll tell you what, Tony, this is the platform, right? This is what these platforms were meant to do. Pull people together. Let them learn from each other. Let them educate themselves. We don't want to see tension and conflict and all those other things because we have enough of that. Obviously that can happen here too. But this is such an amazing platform to be able to bring tons of people together, which is what we have been accomplishing with the On the Chain community. If you look at the people that are subscribed and participate in our live streams, I sincerely believe we have some of the smartest subscribers of any YouTube channel, of any involvement. And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of FOMO YouTube stuff going on, and some of it's a lot of fun. You get in, it's a fun place, talking about, where different digital assets might be, get drawn in because someone's going to talk about, XRP to 589. So it's exciting. It's you want to live through that excitement. And maybe that person knows something different than we don't know because we've all done our research and maybe they have some insider information, which they don't, but it's exciting to feel that and see that. And it's exciting to see what people have done when they get in early and the stuff that we've learned. There's, people in this space on other YouTube channels that have dug into the, digital assets early, like XDC or Polygon or others. And they've gotten in early and they started talking about them early. Right. And then we wait and we sit on the sidelines, but we're excited about it because they're taking that initial risk and we're watching it grow. And then at some point, maybe you do, maybe you don't invest. But it's amazing to me. Everything is just really, really great. So what did David say? Jeff, sorry, but El Salvador is so corrupt and their president is straight up criminal. That might be, that might very well be. They might be corrupt. He might be a criminal. We see a lot of that in those countries. That there's a lot of corruption at the highest levels. There's a lot of criminal activity at the highest levels in government. That might very well be. But when it comes down to them maintaining and managing the sovereignty of their own outcome, the IMF isn't saying, hey, you're a criminal and you're corrupt, therefore you can't make Bitcoin legal tender. That's not what they're saying. The IMF is saying you don't have the right to your own sovereignty, and therefore you cannot make Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador. Two different arguments. So I agree, David. When you look down there, I'm not even referencing the fact of the corruption and the criminal intent or activity of the leadership in many of these countries, El Salvador being one of them potentially. That's a whole different conversation. But the intent is, the IMF again, dictating and attempting to control the outcome of a sovereign nation to determine what they can or can't do. That's not the role of the IMF. So, all right. All right. So anyhow, so we got, and it's great. What is this? Steve's truth will get you censored or at least demonetized. It's true for a big extent. The AI is always listening. It's always listening. Trying to figure out how you say it, what you're talking about. Are you trying to peddle in something that they want to determine as debunked? A lot of things that were debunked apparently are coming from organizations that have a specific political agenda. So, but we don't want to get into that here. That's a different conversation. But take a look at this. Let's zoom in and get rid of those ads. I like this. So we talked about the SEC and Ripple have been going back and forth. The SEC has been really overstepping. They haven't been responding to the court in due time. They're supposed to respond to the court. The court had asked them for specific communication of the SEC regarding Bitcoin and Ethereum. Didn't respond to that. They're going back and forth. Then the SEC came out and said that Ripple should have been on notice because the SEC over the past 8 years have brought other companies to court over selling unregistered securities. So therefore, Ripple should have understood because of that. There's all these different back and forths. Again, it all comes down to the SEC making incorrect assessments and asking for incorrect rulings by the judge, to the point where the SEC came out and attacked XRP retail investors in one of their statements, to the point where the SEC has been requesting delay. For what reason, who knows, because they should just return, but they want to delay in all of this back and forth. Then Ripple came out and said, look, court, if we delay this another 60 days, it's causing undue harm to Ripple, the company, and XRP, the digital asset. And XRP, the digital asset, is interwoven into the RippleNet solution for cross-border payment to bring the cost down to pennies on the dollar to move money cross borders, free up immense amount of capital that's just sitting stagnant in Nostro and Vostro accounts. They want instant settlement. So all this talk about the programmable money people with their central bank digital currencies and their digital dollars and their digital yuans with currency that you can program. But yet there's this agenda right now to try to shut down the digital asset space. We saw it very clearly, from Janet Yellen. Came out right out of the gate when she was appointed. Bitcoin bad, digital asset bad, used for nefarious purpose, only for criminal entities bad. Then she had a change of heart. Then again, they come out and all of a sudden there's a Colonial Pipeline hack, and all of a sudden they're asking for Bitcoin. So, okay, all these narratives, it's interesting. Why are they going after oil right now? I get it. Why are they using Bitcoin? I get it. From the government's perspective, it's perfect. Oil pipelines are able to be hacked. Our power grids are able to be hacked. All of the foundational the foundations of our economy can be hacked, and maybe our power grids will go down. And by the way, they use Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's not traceable, and Bitcoin's used by criminals. And look, see, you have criminals, you have hackers. They just asked for Bitcoin, and now we're sending them Bitcoin. Then like a week and a half later, all of a sudden they're like, hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We got them. We tracked them down. And then they made these statements. Oh, we got their Bitcoin account. Used a lot of incorrect terminology. We got it. Don't worry. No, we got their keys. We got the key. We got their Bitcoin key. It was the hackers over in Russia, but somehow they got their Bitcoin key because they were keeping it on a server in California. What in the world? What kind of nonsense is that? They're keeping their private keys on a server in California. Now, how did they even figure that part out? You have hackers over in Russia that hacked a pipeline that are using Bitcoin that kept their keys on a server over in California. How in the world? First of all, these hackers weren't that intelligent then, if that's the case. If the hackers were using a traditional exchange like a Coinbase or an Uphold or a Gemini or a Binance or a BitTrue or a host of who knows how many, that's their own problem. But I don't know. There's too many, red flags with this whole conversation. What in the world is going on? So now they find it and they take it. They're like, oh, don't worry, we got their money. We got 2.3 or $3 million dollars back in Bitcoin. Don't worry about it. We got it. I'm like, but these are hackers in Russia. Where's the rest of your narrative? Where's your narrative that if it's used for nefarious purpose, you can't trace it anymore? So now is the government trying to say that to the Bitcoin community, we can get you wherever you are, it doesn't matter. We'll track you down and we can take your money no matter what. Maybe that's one thing they're trying to say. I don't know. But people in the Bitcoin space and the digital asset space and the cryptocurrency space, they understand very well that that's probably not true. Now, the thing is, the other thing that's not true is that, yes, Bitcoin is open. As long as you have the address, you can track where it's going. There's entities in this space right now that are tracking the movement of digital asset and making sure that it's not falling into the hands of terrorists. And money has been traced going to terrorists, and these entities that are connected to different governments around the world are tracing it and use a lot of on-the-ground assets as well as other ways and mechanisms to figure out who has which wallet, where it's going, how it's going, who ends up with it. They have an idea of how it's going. It doesn't happen in a week. There's a lot of assets that it takes to pull that off. But in this scenario, none of it seems reasonable. It's amazing to me. It doesn't make any sense that these supposed hackers and this whole Russia, red flag from the beginning for the past 4 years is a false narrative. Why have they been singling out Russia for 4 years? Now, again, let's look at history for a minute within this space. From the beginning of time of countries, they spy on one another. If they're in conflict with one another, they're trying to get each other's secrets from the beginning of time. The US and the Soviet Union, when they were butting heads, had spies on each other's soils. There's movies made about it. There's historical notes made about it, written about it. We know it takes place. We know it's taken place. Hence, you have spy agencies and you have assets on the ground. All of this stuff is real. Why is it some big surprise that Russia has been trying, or the Soviet Union, then Russia would try to influence the outcome of our elections? Because the US does the exact same thing in those countries, tries to influence the outcome of those elections. We've seen it forever. We've seen money movement going around from country to country in order to influence the outcome of certain elections, hopefully falling on their side one way or the other. Maybe they back a country and back them militarily. We saw that conflict between Iran and Iraq for years as a proxy war between the US and the Soviet Union, both feeding their own side. So does it come as a surprise that all of this stuff is happening? No, it's not a surprise, but they try to make it because they want to latch into the uneducated. They want to latch into the naivete. They want to latch into the fact that they've dummied down education systems on a global scale, especially in the US, where they're not teaching them historic fact. They're teaching them made up history based on the narrative that they want people to grow up with. Therefore, they try to write it from their perspective. Those in control can dictate how the history books are written. And if the people are silent, that's our own fault, right? So all of this stuff is important. You have to look at everything. If you want to understand what's happening in cryptocurrency and how the SEC is going to then judge the outcome of any country moving forward, then we have to understand everything. You have to understand it from a political perspective, a geopolitical perspective, an economic perspective. You have to understand the impact that digital assets are going to have on the world. Do you think that these countries, these sovereign nations that are in a power struggle, are going to sit back and allow their sovereign currencies to be taken over by the cryptocurrency space? No, never going to happen. It's not going to happen. They have too much power, too much control, and there's no way that the countries themselves are going to allow their sovereignty to be overshadowed by the cryptocurrency space. Now, the power is in the hands of the people, because this goes back now to our original narrative that we start talking about, right? You have the Ripple test, but then beyond that, what were we talking about in the beginning? We're talking about how the digital asset space has brought power back into the hands of the people on a global scale, which we've never seen before, ever in history, ever. Where we have people on here today from England, from Uganda, from Nigeria, from Thailand, from the US, states all over the US, from Canada, from South America. People are all over the world. Right now, we have almost 250 people. It's an early morning here in the US. We have 250 people on with us right now, which is outstanding, from all over the world, because they have a passion in the cryptocurrency space. Now, this is the first time in history that governments are looking and saying, oh my God, people at the lowest level have a mechanism to make money. People at the lowest level can go to a platform like Celsius and earn 10%, 12%. 13% on their money. They can get paid out in a digital asset. They can get paid out in a stable coin. They can get paid out in the native token of the platform, in the Cell token. People can go to Bitrue. People can go to Binance. People can go to Coinbase and stake their digital asset and earn higher returns than they would if they went to a traditional bank. Do you think the banks are going to sit back silently while this happens? Do you not think that the banking lobby in the United States isn't pushing back at the highest level right now across the board within government? Of course they are. They're pushing back and resisting, because this is how they make their money. Why would you fault them for that? It makes 100% sense that the banks would fight back. I wouldn't expect the banks to sit silent. I would expect that the banks are going to push this out as far as they possibly can push it out until they are ready, until the banks are ready to get into this space. They've seen it over a decade, 10 years. This space is moving forward and has advanced for 10 years. And now the foundation is there. They've built the basement. The basement has set and is dry, and now they're building the rest of it on top of the basement. The structure is there. So the banks understand that, but the banks aren't ready. Banks move slow. Governments move even slower if you have the right government. If you have a totalitarian dictatorship like you have over in North Korea, you're in for a world of hurt. If you're in a country like Venezuela, even those in Venezuela have pushed back and have resisted. I have a customer in Venezuela right now, and there's money in Venezuela. They're willing to spend money in Venezuela. I don't know how the outcome of this is going to be, because before it was extremely difficult to get US dollars for them to buy what they need to buy. So I don't know how it's going to work, but I know that it's amazing, because against all odds, they have an opportunity to better themselves in Venezuela. It's amazing. So the SEC against Ripple, it's not happenstance that the SEC is going after Ripple. Everybody wants to cast blame on Jay Clayton. I applaud him for what he did. Why? Because here we are sitting for 10 years, 8 years with Ripple, silent. The SEC doesn't say anything. Finally, Jay Clayton is now working in the cryptocurrency space. So do you think that Jay Clayton really had animosity and was an antagonist to the cryptocurrency space when he gets hired into this space? Brian Brooks from the OCC gets hired in as the CEO of Binance US. Do you think that that's on accident, or is that purposeful? Do you think that these guys know the direction that the economy is going into? Do you think that they would stake their reputations on a fad, on a scam? They know where things are moving. That's why they're moving in that direction. It's like this misnomer of Florida is going to be underwater in 5 years, but yet all of the big politicians and all of the actors and all of these, people that keep talking about the fact that Florida is going to be underwater in 5 years or 10 years are buying multi-million-dollar properties in Florida on the beach. Are you going to buy a $10 million house on the beach if you believe that in 5 years it's going to be gone, it's going to be wrecked? And the chance that the fallout from something like that is going to be catastrophic, that there's no way that the insurance will ever be able to pay out the amount of money from damage like that? No, because they know what's going on. Just like the SEC knows, just like the banks know what's going on. They all see it. They understand the direction that this space is moving into. We just have to figure out, how do we benefit? How do we get into this space and benefit ourselves? That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. We have to be very observant, very cognizant of what's happening. This is the big picture. Steve, the bigger picture. You have to focus on the bigger picture. You have to understand the bigger picture. You can't just hone in and say, hey, I made, $1,000 from Shiba. That's awesome. I want to know, is XRP going to 589? That's awesome. Hey, that's great. But how about if we look at the future of this space? Where is everything going? How is it being dictated? How can you be impactful in this space, regardless of what country you're in? Because this is the first time in history, again, that people all over the world are on the same page, that we can all benefit and learn from each other. You could be sitting in Japan right now, building a company that's built on the XRP ledger, that's using XRP, because in Japan, they understand the direction that things are moving in. Japan is always so much further ahead, technically speaking. I can remember when I was in undergrad, this was probably in maybe 92. And I remember I was studying with somebody from Japan, and they pulled out this device, and we were studying something, and she didn't understand the word. So she scanned it with this thing, this pen. She scanned the word back in 92, scanned the word, and it translated it from English into Japanese. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing technology. That was back in 92. Might have been 91. I don't remember exactly. So let's just say early 90s. That technology wasn't even here yet. A number of years forward, and I was studying in law school at the time. Not a lawyer. Didn't finish through law school for other reasons. I do have advanced degrees in economics and politics, but that's a different story. Hence, you could probably tell. But anyhow, it wasn't until years later that when I scanned, that I was able to buy one of these pens where you could scan the text and it would take it into your little device and you could scan text. But that was probably in like 98, 2000, 2001. I'm trying to think, 2002. I don't know. Maybe early 2000s. No, it was definitely early 2000s. So technology in Japan, so much further ahead, always. And they're further ahead right now when it comes to this space, so much further ahead as it pertains to XRP and the XRP ledger. Why? Because regardless of what the Bitcoin maxis say, regardless of what the bankers say, regardless of what the SEC says, regardless of what Elon Musk says, regardless of what anybody says, the XRP ledger is probably one of the best technologies that has been developed and designed in the cryptocurrency blockchain space. Why? Because it incorporated everything that's needed on a financial level to move money on a global scale. Forget about Ripple, forget about RippleNet. The XRP ledger and the XRP digital asset, its foundation was to facilitate the movement and transaction of money on a global scale. Think about that. Absorb that for a little bit. It's amazing to me, right? It's amazing. Bitcoin came out originally, go through the white paper, read some of the outcome from Satoshi, but think about what the Bitcoin maxis at that time, it was anarchy, right? Their objective was to get rid of the banks in their entirety. They had this feeling and this premonition that you could trade with Bitcoin and get rid of banks all over the world. But it's not true. You can't get rid of banks on a global scale. Not now. You can't do it with Bitcoin. You can store your value in Bitcoin over the long term. We've seen where it's moved in the past 10 years, bigger gains than anything else in the stock market. Same with the rest of the crypto space for the most part over a 10-year period. But the technology is too slow, too expensive, uses too much power. Until they figure out how to scale it, it's not going anywhere, but it's a good place to store, right? So there's so much to do. But then the XRP ledger has really thought beyond that, right? The Bitcoin was like, let's get rid of banks. The XRP ledger is, how can we move trillions of dollars all over the world at scale, real time, immediately at low cost? If you look at these two technologies, why are the Bitcoin maxis bashing those within the XRP space and the XRP ledger when you can move Bitcoin across the XRP ledger for a fraction of a dollar, for pennies, right? The XRP ledger is that important. We've seen Flare building the smart contracts, how it's going to fundamentally change the way we do business, how it's going to streamline business. Now within, Ripple and on the XRP ledger, David Schwartz was talking about the design to expand on side chains and smart contracts and all these different things, which is phenomenal, right? It's amazing. What has Bitcoin done? Bitcoin is still the store of value. What has Ethereum done? Ethereum is still the smart contract platform. That's awesome. All of these different technologies interfacing with one another to create the most amazing space in the financial space ever. That's opening up to people all over the world. You can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. You can buy a fraction of an XRP. You can have whatever it is you want. Obviously, the pricing fluctuates up and down. You can find a way to get onto Celsius. You can get your money on Celsius and start earning percentages. You're not going to earn anything until you start putting your money in to work for you. You got to put your money to work for you, whatever level you go at. And so this all goes back to the same discussion, the same argument. Why is the IMF coming after El Salvador? Why is the SEC tripping all over themselves when it comes to Ripple? Mainly because they're wrong. Why is it that all of these things are happening? Because the pushback, they're not going to sit back and take it quietly. Never. This case, the SEC v. Ripple, is probably the most important court case of our time. And attorneys are tearing it up. You've got John Deaton, you've got Jeremy Hogan, you have all these brilliant attorneys that understand the fundamentals from an attorney perspective. But if we take a step back and we look at it from the outside and we look at this thing and we're like, oh my God, what in the world is the SEC doing? Pushback, resistance, answering to the banking lobby. They're not ready for it. Why is it that you have Darren Soto and Congressman Warren Davidson, Congressman Soto, Democrat, Congressman Davidson, a Republican, for the third or fourth time have introduced the Token Taxonomy Act in front of Congress that would amend, not change, would amend. They don't want to rewrite the whole thing. They want to amend it. The Securities Act of 1933 and the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. They want to change the IRS code from 1986. There's some other code from the 40s that they want to adjust and amend and this is the foundation of how you get regulatory clarity, regulatory normalcy into the crypto space to allow it to grow on a global scale. The US still needs to maintain their leadership in this space, but yet they've been, tripping all over themselves. Why? Because there's no appetite. You have people like Tom Emmer and Ted Budd that have joined Davidson and Soto and others in the space that understand the true vision of what this means for not just our country, but countries all over the world. Why would you want to keep other countries poor when those other countries can buy and consume your products? Doesn't make any sense unless there's some other manipulation going on a global scale, right? So the SEC v. Ripple, this case, the way they're arguing the case is just a micro, perspective of what's happening on a global scale. They're attacking Ripple. They didn't bring all the facts. Now they're trying to present facts. Now they're trying to delay because they don't have the facts. They're upsetting the court. They're upsetting the investors. When, at what? That's hilarious. At what point, I removed myself from the stream by mistake. At what point has a retail investor ever come to watch an SEC case because that retail investor is on the side of the company that the SEC is going after? Right? It's amazing. But this is why we all gather. This is why we educate ourselves. It's amazing to me, right? It's unbelievable. So then you go out and go back to that global perspective. Why are global entities worried about what's happening? The global entities can no longer move the chess pieces. So imagine El Salvador does have the money. Now they're going to be held accountable for their corruption and their support of gangs or other corrupt things. As David brought up, they're corrupt. He's a criminal. Okay. Let the people have an opportunity to make money. Bitcoin becomes legal tender in El Salvador. Do you think those people are now going to stay quiet now that they have a decentralized mechanism to enrich themselves? I mean, that's a thought, right? Now the people in El Salvador have an opportunity to invest in themselves and make money and develop. It's not all about the corruption at the highest levels of government, because we know there's corruption across the board. It's just a matter of how you interpret it and to what level. So, I mean, there's so much as we dig into this and we try to understand the goals of all of these or the agendas of everything. That's why I look at Jay Clayton, and everyone beat up on Jay Clayton. I said, this guy is a hero. We should look at Jay Clayton as a hero in this space, because the day before he left the SEC, drops a bomb on the SEC. He dropped a bomb on the space in general, and he took what could have been pushed to the dust heap of history for a long period of time. He put the number one case in front of the courts on display in front of all the people of the world. Regardless of how you think about it, he put it out there, said, here you go. We need regulatory clarity. Boom. Now, do you think that Ripple didn't know that this was going to happen, that it was unexpected? There was already talk about it happening. They knew it was coming. It was a matter of time when it would come. But the one thing that we see, and the reason why you could look at Jay Clayton and say, hey, this guy was a hero, is because the SEC is completely unprepared to fight this case, because it looks like, from the way every legal analyst has interpreted it, that the facts are not on their side. The facts are on the side of the people, right? The facts are on the side of the people. The facts are on the side of Ripple, of XRP, of the XRP ledger. We'll see how the outcome is, because the judge is going to have to come up with the outcome. But once there is an outcome from this court case, then you know what the next step is. you know what's going to happen next. They have to fight for regulatory clarity. Now, all this happened in the vacuum. Again, the Token Taxonomy Act and others sitting in front of the Financial Services Committee, and they have been silent. While other little bills have been passing through to allow for inner workings between the SEC and the CFTC, still hasn't passed through the Senate. We haven't seen the president sign off on anything yet. But think about it from that perspective. Regardless of what motivation, I don't care about that. I look at this as a gift, because now not only is it a gift since December, but the whole world came out. It's brought so much attention to how things operate at the SEC level, to the point where the people need to hold their government agencies accountable for their outcomes. John Deaton leading a case of XRP holders and investors against the SEC because of the SEC overreach and ignoring the retail investor to the detriment of the retail investor. So think about all of that. Digest all of this. Think about it over the weekend. Bring back some thought and commentary when we meet tomorrow night, because we do stream 6 days a week, Sunday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we gather every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have some good things that are going to be coming up, some amazing guests that we're working on. We have some congressional candidates. Hopefully we'll have additional congressional representatives and some other people within this space that will be here with it. So I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night. Have an amazing weekend. Thanks for sharing your time with us here on The Chain, and we will check you guys out on the next one. I am out of here. Let's go. Where's that outro?
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.